The Avinya is Tata Motors' new concept that talks about the future of its entire portfolio. The name itself is derived from Sanskrit for innovation, very apt. And of course, the IN right in the middle of that name, India. What better representation of what's happening at this very dynamic car maker from India. Now, when you look at the car itself, it speaks to a lot of different themes. There is, of course, mobility, third generation of its electric architecture, and then the whole talk about its new identity. In fact, if you take a look at that, that to you is going to be the face of this entire new portfolio of vehicles that will arrive in the market starting 2025. The first one will look, well, something like this. It's going to be derived from this very concept, but it will spawn a family of vehicles. Could be hatches, could be MPVs, could be SUVs, and more.
When we looked at this as a brief, we really did look at it responsibly in the sense like what is feasible. So the proportions of it were defined by the design department. So we were the ones who said, we move the wheels out, we enable, we unlock all this space. This is a 4.3 meter vehicle, even though it's hard to believe when you see it.
Yeah.
And yes, the wheels are massive, but at the same time, even on the production vehicle, you know, the wheels will be huge. Maybe not this big, but they will have the same sort of, you know, proportion and ratio aspect, you know. So overall, everything, you know, in terms of the proportion, the wheelbase, you know, everything is, you know, based on some, you know, realism. You know, it's not just complete, you know, vision. But at the same time, you know, a vision is always necessary to know where you're going.
Now, when you say on a production car, I'm not going to pin you down and say, what's the production car? Tell us all about it, because I know that's still some distance away.
Yes.
But in your presentation today, you did say, hey, very clearly picks up, you know, what you need in terms of requirements for a premium hatchback. There's also crossover SUV queues, which are obvious, and then also MPV, which is, you know, the whole space. So when you start talking production car, you're talking about more than one car, potentially.
Actually, yes and no, because this product is what we're working on for production. So in many ways, this is a fusion product.
This is defined. Yeah.
This is a fusion product, and as you said, you know, ride height, you know, cladding of a crossover SUV. You know, windscreen extremely far forward, so a massive cabin space, so MPV like, you know, cabin space. Of course, it's got the premium hatch sort of, you know, Y0 tailgate, and overall the silhouette it's a bit of a kind of hybrid product. At the same time, I think, you know, using that classic segmentation, you know, hatch, sedan, sports car, MPV, I think there's an opportunity to maybe blur the lines and also create maybe something new. So that's the first thing. And actually, the other thing is this platform is the first of several products, some of which we're already starting to work on parallel to this one. And yeah, some of them will be more crossover, some will be more MPV, some will be more premium hatch. This one is a bit of everything at the same time, but you know, we will cover every base with this platform.
And the platform allows you to, of course, go to full-fledged SUV. It gives you all the modularity that's expected.
That's right. But ultimately, you know, when we asked ourselves, you know, for instance, you know, traditionally you would have an engine here.
Yep.
And then that would set up the cowl point and where the windscreen starts. But if it's an EV, you don't need that. So maybe we have some storage here, but maybe that unlocks a different space on the interior. So again, having this sort of classic approach, classic way of thinking, everything's out the window and you can start from scratch. This is for the EV portfolio going forward. So all Gen 3 products will have this identity going
So not
forward.
the Gen 2, not...
No, we will maintain that. And then of course these will be complementary, you know, products. And of course then eventually we'll see in the next couple of years when EV becomes the mainstream how that happens naturally.
Yeah. Lighting, of course, is something that's been exciting for some time, you know, to be able to do so much or express so much through light and light technologies. The other thing which everybody's, of course, obsessed with is safety.
Yes.
And at Tata Motors, that goes without saying.
Yeah, that's one of our pillars.
You know, when I see the front of this, I'm getting like hints of cars like the I-Pace, etc. You know, compressing this unit. How do you plan for safety?
So yeah, when we designed it, actually our engineering team and the design team are working. So, you know, some people were saying we should put the window even farther forward, but actually the reason why we have a little bit of a nose is because of pedestrian impact and as well crash. So we're already doing all of the you know, the targets, hard points. So this will, you know, we have this design already in a production ready sort of, it meets every crash requirement. Obviously, safety is a massive pillar for our company, and our intention is to maintain that. We will definitely maintain a leadership in safety.
We're getting into the cabin of the Avinya now, and technology is the one key word you keep hearing about in the context of in-car environment. Now, here is where I think there's a very interesting play on that, because there is still a lot of tech that's been loaded into the car, but it's intuitive technology. That's the kind of vision the design team seems to take on what could happen by the year 2025. What am I talking about? Well, think about it. Today, the whole idea is to focus on in-your-face technology. Larger screens, more gadgets, lots going on that you are very obviously seeing inside cars. Yes, it's exciting, but maybe we'll get tired of it, or at least that's what these guys seem to think.
What can I do for you? Let me take you on a journey.
I'm a very big believer in, sort of less is more design, getting away a lot of clutter, getting away with as much Baroque, aspect as possible. And that's just generally in design, as a principle. At the same time, the whole USP of this car is, how the people experience the vehicle. So, there are screens in the vehicle. So we have a screen at the base of the dashboard, and we have a screen on the steering wheel. So they give the driver primary information, and then they give the rest of the cabin, the secondary information, everything that you need, but it's not screen centric. So the
it's
screen,
not like the one big
we're
thing.
not part of some screen arms race where 10-inch today, 12-inch tomorrow, full IP like some companies do, and we have enough screen time as it is. So we'll give you the information you need, but it'll be a lot more intuitive. The other thing is, we're placing a bet that we're going to do a voice activated. So we have the sound bar, and just like at home, a lot of people now have a sort of, interface which is voice activated, becomes the hub of a home, it becomes part of an ecosystem. So maybe this is linked with that ecosystem. And at the same time, I think there's a lot to be said for interfacing by voice active, also from a safety point of view, from the driver point of view. And again, like I said, there will be screens in the vehicle. You can see even the mirrors are on the A-pillars, but nevertheless, it's not screen focused. And I think that's a very good thing also from a wellness and mental health point of view, and just safety point of view.
And presumably we would have got tired of these giant screens by the time we get to 2025.
And anyways, what it does is, I guess, like I said, it's consistent with the overall theme and message,
Yeah. Now, of course, I know some of this is, again, concept car-like, but you did speak about sustainable materials. Yes. How easy is it to translate some of that into production? Because, taking it from here into that is not always easy.
Again, the design team on every level is always looking at trends and always talking with suppliers and looking at new things. So for instance, this floor, we have this like tiled floor. So the actual story with this is oyster shells, okay, which are, if you go to the coastline here in the province, you see a lot of fishermen and they have like oysters. So if you're talking about sustainability, yes, it's an EV, but we want to actually make almost like a net zero product. So if you're being responsible, it's where's the material coming from, where is the car manufactured, what is the supply chain, and then at the same time, what happens to the vehicle at the same time. So for instance, oyster shells, fishermen here, fish, harvest the oysters, but then the shells are just dumped. There's mountains of them. So there's a supplier in the country that takes oyster shells, grinds them, basically makes an injection molded polymer and makes a plastic.
Wow.
So you could potentially create
Different
materials
shapes.
which are, we have this, vocal for local, sort of philosophy, but actually then you're reducing, it's not some material that's shipped through, across halfway around the
Massive
world
carbon
and all
footprint.
that. And actually you look at whatever you can harvest or mine, or for lack of a better word, collect, create the product, and actually it creates a unique design patina. So maybe actually even the material reflects where it's come from, and there's a nice story there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that. So whether it's, the fabric material, whether everything is, sustainable, and, the target is that we want to look at absolutely everything and, probably, just, make it as 100%, it's not just like lip service, but it actually, there's a story behind everything. So there's a lot of really nice threads coming through this.
So we're going to get a whole bunch of new cars from Tata. That part is certain. You've already seen the Curvv concept, which sits on the second generation EV architecture. And then you've got this car, which will be bringing us a slew of new vehicles, presumably, in the future. Now, the part of this that is also interesting is that this is a global product that will be coming on this platform, says Tata. And that becomes the part to focus on, because that's where the opportunity lies for a car maker from India to really make it big. Because right now, when it comes to technology, when it comes to the electric space especially, really that is the big leveler in the global automobile market. So can Tata make the big time with a car like this? Certainly hope so. And I have to say, it's great to see a proper show car once again from Tata Motors.